Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. The 76ers get another victory. They beat the Clippers. It got a little dicey. It got a little hairy as you were in that fourth quarter, throwing haymakers back and forth against a Paul George who was rocking and rolling in that game. He was definitely magnificent, and we'll go over the way the Sixers chose to defend him. But I love the fact that you were down in the fourth and you still grinded. You still battled. Joel Embiid, one-legged jumpers, right? Just finding ways to score 2 points. And Furkan Korkmaz, when it was a one-point game, the Sixers were up one. I thought drilled a big three to put them up 4. Ben Simmons, when the Sixers were up 1, he attacked and he was able to score a bucket. Was there a push-off? Maybe. It depends on who's calling that night, who's calling it from a ref's perspective that night. But he still exploded, went to the rack hard, scored in that moment. So I thought that there were big shots made throughout that fourth quarter from different players. I mentioned Embiid. I mentioned Ben Simmons. I mentioned Korkmaz. And the fact that you were able to do that without Tobias Harris, who all season long was that player, well, that's awesome, and it shows me that you're digging deep and you're finding ways, and it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who's playing on the other side that night. You're gathering victories. You're winning basketball games. So entering the night, of course, when you hear that Paul George is questionable, even though we know he played, and hearing that Kawhi Leonard's questionable, and knowing that Tobias Harris was battling a little bit of discomfort and he wasn't probably going to play, and Seth Curry, same thing with him. Like when you see that these names are on the report, it's like, damn, this league has an issue. And it's crazy because I don't want to be that guy, because at the end of the day, like, it sucks from a fan's mindset, and it sucks for the little kids that are paying money. Well, they're not paying money. Their families and their parents are paying money, but you're younger, you're going to the Wells Fargo Center, and you want to see Kawhi Leonard. You want to see Tobias Harris. You want to see these guys play, and they're resting. We saw that the night before. Kevin Durant resting, not playing. And James Harden, he had the injury, so that's different. But the NBA has a problem of resting these players when it's a regular season game. And when you look around the NHL, if you were to see the Boston Bruins play the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I know that's impossible this season, but they're two teams, highly competitive. And keep in mind, when they played the Brooklyn Nets, it was for first seed. It was for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and you're still sitting your players. You would never see that in the NHL. You would never see that in the MLB. Let's say Aaron Nola was supposed to start a game and they just decided, you know what, I don't feel like playing Aaron Nola, so we're just not going to play him. And instead, you'll see Spencer Howard if it was for the number 1 spot in the NL East. It's just something you wouldn't see. So I know the NBA has a problem there, but at the end of the day, guess what? The NBA playoffs are amazing. Everybody gets sucked into the battles there. And from a player's mindset, doesn't matter. Not from a player. It sucks for us. It sucks for fans. And yes, it's a form of entertainment. But if I'm in their shoes, quite honestly, I don't care, because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't force them to play. I heard someone throw out there that there should be sick days where, hey, you can only utilize a certain amount of sick days, but there's so much involved with the union and injuries. And yeah, I mean, then they'll just say that he has an injury or he doesn't, whatever. I mean, there's so many ways around that, and that would never really fly. Regardless of all that, you still had a pretty highly entertaining basketball game. Paul George was cruising. I didn't love that third quarter defensively. You saw the Clippers have so many wide open threes. I thought they fell asleep at times, which was disturbing considering what happened early in the game. I thought the defense was very unbelievable. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, they were attacking, and you saw Ben Simmons just stealing the basketball at will. You saw Joel Embiid, and this was the play that was highlighted throughout the night. It started with Ben Simmons at the top of the perimeter. Here comes a pick and roll. Joel Embiid comes up, slides up, and that's been something we have been watching all season long. The pick and roll defense coming up, making sure when they try and do the pick, Joel is keeping the intensity on that and making sure there's a good angle, which forces a bad pass. Really tough to be able to really either make a pass over the top or find an area, find a lane to bounce pass. It's just not there. It's shut down from from Ben and Joel, which forces a turnover. Danny Green, Ben Simmons, Joel runs the floor. I mean, it was just beautifully executed from the defensive end of the floor, passing the basketball up the floor, and the big man being the first guy all the way down to the paint. Bang, bang, bang. Beautiful passes, highlighted as they were going to commercial on the ESPN broadcast and all. I mean, that is just textbook 101 great basketball. You saw that in the second quarter. You saw the magnificent play from Ben where it was, he pokes it from... who did he poke it from? I can't even read my own handwriting here. He took it right from Morris, and then from there, even though they still had possession, the Clippers did, it goes over to Patterson in the corner, and here's an outrageous block with the length of his hands, the length of his arms, out by the perimeter, just swats it away, and it just shows you the athleticism and the defensive mindset of what Ben Simmons provides. Not that this is anything new to us. We've seen it, but it was definitely on display. You had Danny Green on Paul George, though, and there is a little bit of concern there. I don't know if I necessarily love the idea of that. You got Ben Simmons being a roamer and kind of floating around and pouncing when he can, which, quite honestly, you see a play like that, and it's like, okay, would that have happened if you were sticking a Paul George? Like, being the roamer gives you that versatility of making these incredible plays throughout the perimeter and just locking down guys when there's a one-on-one potential matchup. But when you see Paul George explode with that type of night where he finished with 37, and I'm someone that looks at Paul George, and there's nights where it's like, dude, you are so overrated, and there's nights where I think he's very non-efficient and he's all over the map. Then there's games like tonight where he was cruising and he was in his bag and he was scoring out well. But I think a product of Danny Green being on him was definitely one of the reasons why. You're somewhat allowing him. Hey, Doc, you're allowing him to be able to get those opportunities. And if you allow someone like that to get going early, and he's one of those players where he has the ability to get hot and take over games. If you come out right at the gate saying, Paul, we're not giving you that. We're not allowing you to score. We're not allowing you to get yours. Then it changes compared to, hey, we'll start with Danny Green on him, and if things intensify, we'll then switch. We'll then go in another direction. Well, then you even open the door to allow him to be a different version of himself, one of those scary versions. So you're allowing that to even be the case. So didn't really love the defensive identity on Paul George, and I think it showed why that was throughout, but you were able to hold on and you were able to make more plays down the stretch, so you do need to recognize that as well. So yeah, I mean, you start out insanely hot, right? You're up like 20-3, and you're cruising in that first quarter. That's when that play happened with Danny, Joel, Ben. You make a bucket 23. You knew the Clippers were going to, at some point, start producing a bit more, start scoring some points. And Tyrese Maxey, of all people, a floater, a pass from Ben Simmons for 3. I thought Tyrese Maxey showed a bit. Now, I still don't think that means much. I still don't think he's ready, and I don't think when everyone's healthy, when George Hill is in the mix, when Seth Curry's available, when everyone's playing and healthy for the playoff, Tyrese Maxey is so out of sight, out of mind. He's just so raw still, but it's nice to see. Like, I thought his season was so all over the place in terms of minutes. You never know what you're going to get. You never know when you're going to play. When you do play, is it 5 minutes? Is it 12 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Are you when you start, how much are you going to play? What are you going to have to do? What's your role going to be when you do start? Like, are you focused on scoring? Are you focused on getting your teammates going? It's just really so random, and that's not easy to do. If you know you're a 12-minute a game guy, you know what you're going to do. You know what you're supposed to do. You know where you stand and who you're going to play with. Tyrese Maxey has been thrown a curveball all season, and that's fair. I don't think it's not fair. I think that's what it is when you're a rookie and you're drafted by a team like the 76ers who has a player like Joel Embiid that's ready to go win now and playing at an MVP level. When you have Ben Simmons, when you have Danny Green, when you have George Hill, when you have even a guy like Shake Milton who was abysmal on both sides of the floor, and he had 4 turnovers and he was sloppy, and he showed you exactly why you had had to go out there and get a player like George Hill. I am anti-Furkan. Everybody knows that. I think Shake has been so miserable more times than not this year, where Furkan's at least playing with a little bit of confidence, where he might actually step over, do a little Allen Iverson, Ty Lue, step on over Shake Milton just for those very limited minutes in the playoffs. That's how bad I think Shake Milton has been this season. But yeah, Tyrese, there's something there for him to just constantly build off of. And I know looking at this game, it's what is Tyrese Maxey really long term? Like, how are you going this deep into Tyrese Maxey? But I just think it's crazy to see what he has been thrown into this year. And that floater is amazing. I think that floater is going to be a staple of his game. And we're talking 2-3 years down the road of this kid developing, whether he's here in Philadelphia or not, because he's definitely a piece that you could trade to maybe acquire something down the road. Because as I alluded to, you're in a different spot now. You're in those moments in those seasons where it's time to go win this thing now. It might cost you a player like Tyrese Maxey, where if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you're one of these younger teams that has a more window of growth, you easily are more available to a player like Tyrese Maxey. But that floater is going to absolutely be a part of his game. He's not afraid to attack, man. The kid is just not afraid to attack, and it was definitely something really fun to watch yesterday for sure out of me, but I thought he came up big in that spurt in the second quarter-ish where the Clippers were making some more of their shots and definitely pushing into the lead. I thought Ben was great defensively. There's no denying that. I will punish him, though, for what I saw early on. 16 minutes. 16 minutes for a primary ball handler like Ben Simmons to take his first field goal. I'm sorry, dude. That's unacceptable, especially when you see what he does when he is willing to attack, right? He gets a nice bucket. Then he has an amazing jam where there's a lane that's created. He just attacks. He explodes. He goes as hard as he can, and he gives a celebration, and everyone from the Clippers side just takes a step away. Why? Why was there such a wide open lane? Why did everybody back off and allow the sea to open up? Because Ben Simmons is incredible in that time when he does that, when he's able to go downhill and be that guy. It's obvious that nobody wants a part of it. So if nobody wants a part of it, why does it take you 16 minutes? 16 minutes as the primary ball handler to get up a shot. It's insane. And I will not stop. I will not take my foot off the gas on this Ben Simmons drama. Don't try and tell me, well, Brodes, he got the team open. He passed the basketball well. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't need to be this or that. 16 minutes is literally impossible from a starting point guard to not have a shot. To not have a shot? How do you not see an issue with that at all? You can still get your passes. You can still get your guys. You can still distribute the basketball and still get a field goal attempt while doing that. It just shows you the lack of ability to, it's like, if you want to, you will. It's about not wanting to, right? I mean, it's that simple. It's about not wanting to. And until that changes, I'm going to bitch about it. I'm going to freak out about it, because when he wants to, the whole entire Clippers team backs off because they're afraid to get dunked on. Huh. It's so irritating. It really is. The Sixers put up 29 three-point attempts in that first half, which is incredible considering what they averaged this year. And you're going to have to see this team take a lot of threes to win in playoff games. Like, you can look at it as Joel Embiid is so dominant, let's work the offense through him, which you obviously have to do. But there's also a side of this where if you're going to keep up with some of these explosive teams that can score the basketball, well, you're going to have to shoot those. And what bothered me is I expect this team to get outworked from the three-point percentage and the three-point attempts, because that's not who they are. That's not their identity. I like to see them take more, and I do think that it should be drilled into their head a bit where let's make sure we put up shots. Don't be afraid to shoot those shots. There's been times where Seth Curry was hesitant. There's been times where guys were hesitant. Mike Scott wasn't even hesitant, and he stinks. I mean, this Mike Scott experience has been an absolute joke to this point. 2 and 9. I mean, he was embarrassing, but he was popping the threes. My point is, Mike Scott won't be playing. It would be someone else who's more capable of taking those threes, more capable of drilling those threes. Keep shooting when those chances come your way. I thought that was big just from like a philosophy standpoint of the game. So that's big. I don't like when, for majority of this game, though, I'm seeing the Clippers drill it at over 50% clip. At some point, you got to do a better job. They lost their shooters. They lost Patterson. They lost Paul George, not Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. They lost these players. Morris. You can't have them constantly make those shots and get those wide open looks. This team is going to make you pay. And I do feel like there's this animosity between these two franchises just based off of the Ty Lue, Doc Rivers, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard combination where whether everyone's playing or not playing, there's this drama surrounding what happened last year. So there is a bit of a more, I'm not going to go to the level of like hatred as if it's the same as seeing the Boston Celtics logo or it's the same as seeing some of these other teams that you can't stand and hate the faces, but you could just tell Doc Rivers has this demeanor about seeing that team, and that's good. I mean, that makes the game a lot more fun. It makes it a lot more interesting. It shows that there is this competitive fire between the two teams. I think that's why you saw Paul George have that extra bounce in his step, and why you see Joel Embiid, although he has that bounce in his step every single night. You could just tell that this team battles for their coach, and they want to fight for their coach, and they want to make a statement for Doc, and I'm sure Doc uses that to his advantage when it comes to pregame meetings, when it comes to saying certain things in the locker room, and the team vibes off that, and they really do. They feel off that. It's like, let's go do this for coach, and that's what they did. But I couldn't stand that. Doc Rivers even said that when he had the headset on during the broadcast. Hey, I don't like where we're trending here with that three-point shooting, and yeah, I mean, it was just something that had to have been stopped. It couldn't stay with that rate, and unfortunately, for as strong as I thought that they were in certain moments defensively, first, second quarter, I thought it was the complete opposite throughout the third and sometimes even a little bit in the fourth quarter. Even Ben Simmons. Like Ben Simmons, couple minutes to go, Sixers are up, and he's falling asleep or he's defending Paul George by the three-point land, and Paul George just cuts to the basket with ease, and he's literally wide open, standing underneath the basket, and there's a layup. Hey, we got to be stronger than that. You got to put the clamps down there, and that's when we need the best version of Ben Simmons defensively. You got to definitely keep an eye on him. Come on, you're going to allow their best guy, their hottest scorer, to sneak behind you like that? Come on, Ben. I love, though, Joel. Joel's been working on this one-footer, and he even said after the game they've been watching Dirk's film and seeing what he's been doing, and you could tell that he's added the Hall of Famers game to his game. One-legged, facing up to the basket, even the spin-around fadeaways, all of it. It's almost as if you're watching Dirk's tape when you're watching Joel Embiid, and once again, now you're watching him not only mature on the court because it's an obvious statement that he has added so much to his repertoire, but it's about how he's going about it. Okay, so yes, he's putting in the work. He's making sure that there's different elements to his game that has been attacked in the offseason, and there's certain areas on the floor that he has been able to deliver more now than he has in other seasons where it's the same spot. But now it's the growth off the floor. Now it's how do I grow my game in the film room, in the study room. It's now taking it to this extreme level. Man, it's just a joy. It's just a joy. 18 free throws, 16 of 18 from the charity stripe. This dude, he wills his way. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be open jump shots constantly. It's not going to be that open free throw extended game. Although, I mean, it does seem to be that way as well. There are times where he is just, oh, okay, you're going to give this to me? I'm going to destroy it. And then there's times where it's like, I know you want me to shoot here, but I'm smarter than this. I've studied the film. I've studied the tape. I know that you want me to do this. I'm not going to allow you to win that mental battle. Let's go in the post. Let me back you up. And then he backs you up, and his higher percentage shot, instead of just a free throw extended jumper when he was already facing up, is a fadeaway jumper from 10 feet. And that was, quote, a better shot and a more efficient shot. And it is. It is. That's the scary part about Joel Embiid. But even if I got to will my way to the line, I'm going to will my way to the line, and I'm going to knock them down. Foul trouble. Getting guys in foul trouble early. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go, Clippers? Now, most of the time, you don't have success when you go small ball because Embiid is going to crucify you. He's going to absolutely annihilate that matchup. I did think the Sixers in this specific game had a little bit of it, and that goes back to the three-point shooting, spacing out the floor. If you think, hey, let's match up a big guy with Embiid, like, good luck. Good luck. I think you might have to go with this, let's spread them out, let's go small ball. That might be your best bet. I'm not saying it's a great bet. I'm not saying it gives you a great opportunity. Your opportunities are extremely small, and they're very limited for a reason. It might be your best chance, though. Space guys out, try and knock down those threes. I thought the Sixers did have some trouble, but how does this change with Tobias? How does this change with Seth Curry? More Tobias, though, because defensively and offensively, too. We talked about the mismatches and how his mentality this year has just been, screw you. Let's get the pick. Let's get what I want, and let me go. Let me drive. Let's play that mid post-up game and let me get to where I need to. Let me shoot over the defender from maybe the right inside the free throw line. That has been obnoxiously fantastic. Defensively, though, we talk about going small and going 5 out and playing that style game. If you're the Clippers, does that change with the versatility of what Tobias Harris brings you defensively, and would it have the same impact? I would make the argument that no, it does not have the same impact because of how strong and how well Tobias Harris has been on the defensive side of the floor this year. Before I continue, I do want to let you know about my friends over at DraftKings. You can utilize the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use promo code Brodes to sign up for so many phenomenal odds boosts and promotions that are available, whether it's the 76ers and the over-under for the total, the spread, player props, the entire NBA, of course, the NHL. You got some golf. The Masters was amazing. UFC is in play. So what you need to do is download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use promo code Brodes when you sign up. That's code Brodes when you sign up. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. There's only a limited time for some of these odds boosts, so make sure you do it now. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So there's one thing I didn't like from Doc Rivers, and that was this lineup here. Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Mike Scott, who I mentioned was abysmal, Tolliver, and Milton. I just think we just talked about how you were able to somewhat utilize your lineup where someone was always on the floor, Ben, Joel, and you're staggering these minutes. Then you give me that garbage. That was a terrible lineup. That's something that I don't want to see. I just hate it. I hate the mindset. I hate the idea. I hate the concept, and it bothers me. But it's something we've seen throughout with Doc Rivers. But the last 3 games, I specifically highlighted it on my notes. This is amazing. I love the fact that you're not going down this road again. This is something that hurts your team more than it benefits. There are times where you take a step back afterwards and goes, that all bench unit did actually work. But if you're going to look at this, it has definitely hurt you more times than I just cannot stand seeing it, and I think it was bad. I thought Matisse Thybulle was bad defensively in crunch time, which was a little shocking to see. And then I mentioned Tolliver. It might not have been the most great night offensively for him, but for the old veteran, just to go out there and run up and down the floor, I think he showed you in spurts that there is something there on the other end of the floor. And, look, it's not going to be a monstrous role. It's not going to be a huge role. He might not even log in many minutes at times. But if you need something, there's something there from this veteran presence. I'm not going to put anything major involved in the Tolliver experience for this team, but he brings you like this locker room culture that you're looking for. He gives you that energy defensively and that spark plug. We talk about, it's funny, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, two young guys that can create a spark. Furkan, young guy that can create a spark. Sometimes it's about the guy that you don't expect to do anything, is that dog that kind of helps out with a couple minutes here and there that somewhat generates a bit of energy for the team, the starters, to get back out there and say, hey, here's this push. Here's the step in the right direction. I'm going to create that for this team. Well, there's something to be said, too, when it's the veteran guy. Like, who was it the other year? Corey Brewer. We saw Corey Brewer do it, and it was amazing. The Wells Fargo Center acted as if this guy was Wilt Chamberlain, acting as if this guy was Joel Embiid in his prime. It was incredible the way that he sparked that squad, and I don't expect the impact to be that strong, but you get my point. So I'm looking at it as, we'll see what it is. I don't expect it to be much, but there is something there. All right, why don't we head on over to the Anytime Hotline here and hear from you?
Well, the Sixers won a very tight game. And again, I think the comeback is a little bit less excusable in this instance. You know, they were up pretty early, and I think they really could have tried to put their foot on the throat of the Clippers. But that bench unit did not look very great at times, and they allowed them to kind of creep back into it. And quite frankly, I think Embiid was a little bit lackluster at times with some wild shots and some turnovers. The Clippers, at least in the first half, seemed to get to him a bit before some adjustments in the second half. Ben Simmons kind of quieted down the second half, didn't do very much. Furkan Korkmaz, well, he's continuing to have a hot April. You have to at least give him that. And, you know, but without Tobias and Seth Curry, there's only so much you can take away from this game. And the free throws are just key for him.
No doubt about it. Now, with Furkan, he shot 6 of 15. So let's not act as if my man just let the world on fire and he was ripping through shots left and right. He had starter minutes, and when a shooter like that has starter minutes without Seth Curry and all, it's like, hey, just shoot as many shots as you possibly can, fire him up. 6 of 15. It's not the most impressive night ever, just saying. But he did hit that big bucket, I thought, in the fourth quarter when they were only up 1. That put them back up 4. And the Sixers, it wasn't as if they cruised through that fourth quarter. It was a back and forth on the seesaw, as Mark Zumoff would say. But a couple things I want to touch on. You mentioned with Joel Embiid, sometimes he was all over the place. I actually thought there were some passes that didn't show up on the stat sheet where the Sixers actually contributed after Joel Embiid set the tone with some nice passes, and from there, it was good offense for the Sixers. So it's like the hockey assist concept, or just establishing your offense with Joel Embiid. He doesn't necessarily get the assist or get any of the spark on the stat sheet, but he did generate the flow of that possession, which then related to 76ers points. But yeah, I mean, there definitely were some possessions that weren't the smoothest out of him and whatnot. But also, with the great teams concept here, when the Clippers come back, this is where I have a little bit of a problem of, I can't believe they allowed the Clippers back into it. This is basketball at the NBA level. There's runs that are made. You're going up against a team that's at the top of the Western Conference for a reason. The Clippers know what they're doing. The Clippers have talent. And you know what? They were missing Kawhi, but you're missing some guys which allow them to have an opportunity to climb back into the game. When you start out with a 20-3 lead, that's not sustainable, is my point. So I don't like the fact that they lost the lead, and it should have never got to that point. But, there's going to be a run made by the Clippers. It's the NBA. It's basketball. It's a game of runs. So when you go up 20-3, you know at some point the Clippers are going to shoot better. You know at some point they're going to be a better version. You know at some point they're going to have better offense, and one of their guys is going to be able to generate better looks than they have been to that point. You're not going to keep your foot on the gas to that extreme where it's 20-3. The Clippers know how to play basketball. The Clippers are a really successful team that win a lot of games. They're going to fight back. And not just a product of how you play. You could still play amazing, yet the Clippers are so good that they can counter and still find ways to kind of chip back into the lead and climb back slowly but surely, and that's what they did. And sure, the Sixers fell asleep defensively and all, but you got to give credit too. One of the reasons why that is because the Clippers knew that they had a chance to, and they made sure that they took advantage of some of those mismatches. And when you fall asleep and you allow a player like Patterson to be wide open in the corner, he's going to drill that. Good teams exploit those holes. So, yeah, I would have liked to see the Sixers not allow it to get to the point where they need to make crucial buckets in the fourth and it becomes a back-and-forth game late. I don't want it to get to that point. But to make it seem as if it's such a terrible spot on their end for the Clippers to be the Clippers too, I think that there's a balance here. The Clippers are a great team. The Clippers are going to be able to make some shots and climb back in. That's why we value the matchup the way that we do. That's why this game is highlighted on the calendar, because that's what it is. There's times where the Sixers might start out a game slow. And let's say the Sixers are down 32-20 after the first quarter, right? Probably not ideal. Probably not what you want to see. But what happens? They end up becoming a better basketball team. They get into rhythm. They get into their groove. They start running their offensive sets. They lock in defensively a little bit more. And they start playing Sixers basketball. Is that necessarily a problem on the other end? I'm sure at times. But the Sixers also do that to the other teams where they're going to make their run. And they're making their run because they're forcing the other team to make some mistakes. And they're confusing the other team. And they have better matchups. That's just how it is sometimes. With this Clippers team, that's how I saw this more of a product of the Clippers were going to come out. They were going to figure it out. They were going to get in rhythm at some point, and that's what they did. All right, let's go to the next call.
Woo-hoo-hoo! That's what I'm talking about. I'm not going to lie. When I heard that Tobias, Seth, Dwight was out, I didn't really have high hopes for this game. But Joel Embiid carried the way, baby. Let's go.
I have that same feeling when watching Joel Embiid. I just have a smile on my face the entire time. Ear to ear, just my face lights up. And I was actually watching the game at one of my buddies' places. A couple of my buddies are home from, they play like pro hockey overseas and all. They came out. I was like, oh, let's get together. They're not huge basketball fans, but I'm like, hey, I got to work, but let's hang out. So we'll throw the game on. We'll watch it. And they're watching Joel Embiid. It's, wow, this guy is incredible. This guy's amazing. This guy can do it all. This guy's getting fouled. This guy's making buckets. I'm trying telling you, you got to watch this kid. He is amazing. Watch this kid. He's 27 years old now, but he is a dude that he makes I'm watching around the room, right? And everyone's eyes are wide open with the way that he drills his shots, takes over, makes buckets. The one-legged jumper is now my new favorite thing. Every game, there's something new that makes me more excited than the previous game. And right now, it's this one-legged jumper. It is outstanding. And I can't wait to continue to watch him grow 1,000%. All right, with that being said, we're going to end the episode here. I want to thank everybody so much for listening, and I will see you next time.